Hello, guys. Tim here again, here to do a movie review, this time for Insidious, The Red Door. Now, it's been a while since I've actually reviewed the Insidious movies. I did it a long while back. And it's actually been a while since I've really critiqued them in terms of watching them. But going straight from memory, I remember really enjoying the first one. The second one I thought was probably like the second best. I really liked the first two. The third one I thought was just like alright. It was just more of a typical Insidious movie. The fourth one I actually remember liking more than three. And a lot of people don't like number four, The Last Key. And I kind of get why, but at the same time, I think I remember enjoying The Last Key simply because of the fact that it was really focused completely on Lin Shaye's character. And that was kind of my disappointment with Insidious 3 is that she was just still like a side character. And in Last Key, she was the main character. So I think that was why I enjoyed that one a little bit better, because I was a big fan of Lin Shaye in those movies. Even though I did feel like the first two movies that were focused on the Lambert family and Patrick Wilson were the strongest by focusing on them. As far as this one goes, it tries to go back to the Lambert family. It has to bring them back as the main characters. You got Rose Byrne back, and the actors who played the kids, the actor who played Dalton, and the other two kids' names, the little girl and who was a baby like the first two, and the other brother or whatever. Those other children are like all forgettable. They're not really important in this movie at all. But the kid who plays Dalton, I think his name is Ty Simpkins maybe, but he does an overall good job in this movie. He has one or two maybe weaker acting moments, but for the most part, he's fine. Patrick Wilson does a good job here once again. This film really feels like an epilogue to those first two movies. At the same time, it really feels like it didn't really need to be made. Like, those first two films really feel like they kind of wrap up the Lambert story like perfectly. There really wasn't any reason to make another Lambert movie except just to drive the money for the box office. It seems to have worked because this movie did really well, and they already announced they're going to do a spin-off with Mandy Moore in this franchise. But yeah, overall, this film, it didn't really need to be made, or if it was going to be made, it needed to be spruced up with the script, because I'll just go ahead and say it, this is my least favorite Insidious movie out of the five. I think there's five now, or yeah, five. But it's not a bad movie. It's pretty weak altogether as a whole, but it's not a terrible movie. I'd give it a 2 out of 4. This was an okay time waster, a harmless flick. It does have some bad parts to it. Overall, the acting was fine. The drama and stuff handled in it, and that's kind of the biggest problem with this movie, is it really focuses on the drama and stuff, how the family's like split apart since Insidious 2, which is really weird because at the end of Insidious 2, they seem fine. But this is more about like the aftermath of the fallout of what happened in Insidious 2 and how they had their memories erased at the end of that with hypnosis, and how the Dalton, the kid, and the father, Patrick Wilson, are like dealing with it and everything, and it's like made them more forgetful and everything and stuff like that, and drove a wedge into Patrick Wilson's marriage, and he's wound up getting a divorce or at least separated. But they hint at the end of the movie though that they're probably going to get back together, him and Rose Byrne, and that things are going to get better for his family. But yeah, overall, the positives, it's still cool to see the Lambert family back and Patrick Wilson back. Patrick Wilson does a good job here. He also directs. His directing overall is okay. Some of the jump scares are well done, but this film lacks the atmosphere of those other Insidious movies. It's missing the atmosphere that was done in the other Insidious movies. Not just the James Wan movies, but the 3 and 4, they still felt like Insidious movies. This movie does not really feel like an Insidious movie. It just feels like or it just feels like a random paranormal, like family drama flick. And it's not, that doesn't make it bad necessarily. It just takes away the Insidious feel, and 50% of the coolness of Insidious, or maybe even 60%, is the atmosphere. This movie lacks that. Most of this movie, it's not even focused on the scares. It's focused on character drama with Patrick Wilson and his son. And his son it's kind of understandable at first why he's maybe a little bit of an asshole towards his dad, because he has like residual feelings or whatever, like in his mind about, his dad like going crazy or whatever because he was possessed and trying to kill him. At the same time though, they do paint this son as like, too much of an asshole at times. Like, they have scenes where he's like, he's the outsider kid, and he like looks at the preppy kids and all that in college and everything, and he's like, he doesn't want to have anything to do with it and all that, and they do make the preppy kids and stuff like that seem like assholes at their parties and everything, their frat parties. But at the same time though, he's one of those like outsider kids who's like, I'm better than this, like all the time or whatever. It's like, I'm just so hip, I'm so out of this, I'm so non-conformist. It's like just so in your face with it a little bit. He's like, they're trying to hand him like a flyer to invite him to a fraternity or whatever, to sign up for a frat or whatever, and he just walks by like, not interested. It's like, it's a little much. It does be a little annoying, and like he gets introduced with this black female sidekick character. I think the actress does a good job for what she's supposed to be, which is pretty much comedy relief, but at the same time, she wasn't really needed for the film. This movie would have probably been stronger if it just focused on Patrick Wilson and the son like bonding together, maybe like them on a road trip together or something, like figuring everything out and all that and bonding together. Then Dalton like being off at college. It almost feels like two different movies at points. It feels like this Dalton college Insidious movie, and then like a mini movie with Patrick Wilson until Patrick Wilson becomes the star or whatever by the end, or by the final act. And the red-faced demon shows back up. It's cool to see him here. He eventually possesses Dalton's body or whatever again, and takes it over and like attacks the black chick and all that. And the other thing is the black chick's like way too like just jumping in and wanting to believe like everything that Dalton's talking about. Like he talks about how he's like leaves his body and all that and everything, and like can walk around, you know, and see stuff. And she comes back like the next day and she's like, "Oh, I watched this video. You're astral projecting." He's like, "No, in real life, this chick would have went there and be like, oh, you're crazy as shit." That's what she would have said. It's ridiculous, like how fast she jumps on like the astral projection train. But she watches like a YouTube video of Specs and Tucker talking about it with Lin Shaye's character from the other movies, and she has a cameo in this. Lin Shaye does as a ghost that talks to Patrick Wilson at the end, telling him everything's going to be all right and all that. It's still cool to see Lin Shaye back. I appreciate that, and I do like the father-son like dynamic in this, of that how it resolves by the end, because Dalton's like painting all his family and everything, but he doesn't have one of his father. And when he gets his memories back and he realizes that his dad like tried to protect him and all that in those first two movies, he finally puts a picture of him up against the wall, and that's how the movie ends with like Patrick Wilson walking into the room. He's like, "Oh, I finally made the wall, huh?" And, you know, they're like smiling at each other, him and his son are, and so it ends on a happy note. You get the idea that everything's going to be alright with the family. At the same time, though, this film's just kind of meandering. It just kind of goes through the motions because there's not really an oomph to the plot, because it's just about like Dalton and Patrick Wilson just kind of wandering around and having slight family drama, but without the atmosphere and mood of the other Insidious movies, and them just trying to figure out what the hell happened to them. And so it's just kind of uneventful. It's just not very interesting of a plot to have for another Insidious movie to justify bringing the Lambert family back. But overall, as a whole, this is an okay time waster movie if you're a fan of the franchise. It's my least favorite of the series, but it's not bad. It has bad moments and bad parts. The red-faced demon is underused, but when he does show up, it is kind of cool to see him again. But he is underused here because Patrick Wilson directing, it just felt like he really wanted to focus on the family drama, and even have his character's dad, who shows up as a ghost in the movie at one point, who really felt like that plot felt underused and undercooked. It feels like this movie deleted some stuff from it, or had some stuff deleted out in terms of deleted scenes and everything. But yeah, overall, it's okay. It's an okay time waster. I would give it a weak recommend if you're a fan of the Insidious films, but if you're not, this one's not going to change your mind. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you again.